Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. As part of our continuing ATX Television Fest Season 13 coverage, dive into the casting process with Sherry Thomas in this enlightening chat about the magic of television. Learn how Sherry matches actors to roles and brings stories to life in projects ranging from Breaking Bad to Barry. It's a fantastic interview, and we hope you enjoy.
So this is Les from the TV Dudes. Do you mind introducing yourself?
No, not at all. Sherry Thomas. I'm a casting director.
So I'm always interested whenever anybody has a job that isn't actor-director.
Yeah.
Often we don't know the hundreds of people whose collaborative work makes TV, makes movies, makes things happen. How did you find casting director as your path or lane? Did you know that was a job?
No. I mean, I grew up in Massachusetts, a small, progressive, big small town, if you will, and it was just that. You were either a performer or that was it,
Yeah.
So LA was really Hollywood growing up. It was, you knew that's where they made TV and movies, and I was a TV kid. I was a latchkey kid. I watched a lot of TV. People would freak today, parents, if kids were doing what we were doing. It was a babysitter.
Time, and I'm like, how much TV?
Yeah, give me a break. Exactly. But I think that, what I didn't realize I was doing as a kid was studying. I would watch things over and over and over again. I would go through the old HBO guides that you would get. You could see what movies were playing, when they were playing. And I remember playing sick and skipping school one day so I could watch 9 to 5 3 times. If I, timed it out, it was on repeat. So, you're really studying, and you didn't realize what you were enjoying about it. And I always said I'm going to live in Hollywood. I didn't know why. And I was a dancer and a singer, and so the natural progression would have been an actress. So I came to LA, and I didn't know anybody, and I thought that was going to be my path, and everything in the universe kept pulling me toward this thing called casting, which I learned more and more about, and I just kind of surrendered and fell in love with the idea of being able to be creative but having a little bit more control over it if you can. And it kind of found me in a very long way to get there, but it found me, and once I surrendered I was like, I understand this makes sense to me.
When it comes to doing the job, do you often have the full finished script? Is it nebulous? Are you meeting with people? How do you go about making your list of, I think it's these 5 folks that you should pick from?
Yeah, I wish it were that easy. Quite often there is a script to work from. Sometimes it's just an idea of where, here's the idea, here's the script that's being written, but we want to get started. And so you try to sort of have these meaningful conversations about something that might not quite be on the page yet. When you do have the script, you read it, and sometimes I'll read something and an actor will pop into my head. Sometimes I'll be reading it and a prototype of an actor will pop into my head, meaning somebody who has passed on, somebody who is not available, somebody who maybe was something at one time but has fallen off the path. Yeah. And I think the thing that's most exciting in casting is really truly the process, the discovery as you go. Sometimes it is very... When I read Barry, the acting class was not identified. There were, a couple of lines, but they weren't really identified as to who those people were. They were sort of generic lines. And NoHo Hank was something that was very, very specific. And Anthony Kerrigan is somebody that I pictured in my head for the part, but I didn't know if he had the facility of language to do the accents. I knew him as an actor. I knew him as a person. I knew how great he,
not
charismatic.
Not everybody's got that ear. My accents are not good.
Right, and so I just was like, I wonder. I just don't know. And so I called his manager and I said, does he do accents? Because I got this thing, and I think it's going to be really great. And she said, let me ask him. And then the rest is history. He came in, he auditioned, we talked about it. The character was completely identified for him in his brain. And then what I had pictured was able to, come to life.
Have you ever had moments where the writer's written a description in the thing, and you know that that's what they're thinking, and you're reading it going, buddy, you should get this guy?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's challenging sometimes, the writer or the director. Quite often, we've worked with people who have their ensemble, that they work with over and over and over again.
Yeah,
and
I know these people can say Deadwood language, so they should stick with
Yeah, and so sometimes, when we go and meet on jobs, because we don't just get handed them, we all, the panel that I did here earlier today was with Bonnie Zane and Susie Ferris and myself, and I'm sure we've all been up for the same jobs at one time or another, and we audition for jobs. So part of that is sort of explaining our process, and that, sometimes, though it might be a great idea, I might push you out of your comfort zone a little bit to educate you on somebody or explore a different type or tone, whatever it may be. We may end up at where you originally had thought we would, but then you might be inspired by something new that you see. So
I would think that it's the part of the real skill of your job is managing that conversation. That I'm not trying to give you an actor that's the opposite of your character. I'm not trying to rewrite your script. We're talking about the same person. Like, I'm helping you develop this character, and not a. Is that something that you feel like you've had to evolve or get better at over
Oh my gosh, yes, of course. I mean, that's maturing as a person. I mean, the articulation that I have today is not the articulation I had when I was 27, 33.
At 25, I felt pretty stridently right about a lot of stuff.
Yes, and were you? Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that is part of the growth process, and one that I'm really grateful for, that I came up at the time that I did, where it was okay to listen in on phone conversations. You could be in an office and overhear conversations. You could be in an audition room constantly learning how to direct, being with, the producers and the director. Hardly ever does that happen anymore. It's all done.
Has self-tape kind of broken that, or has that changed your job?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big topic of conversation. It's one, we've been self-taping, Sharon Bialy, who's my business partner, and I have been self-taping for more than a decade, pre-COVID, by nature of where our shows produced. Yeah, so Breaking Bad was in New Mexico, Walking Dead was in Atlanta. So we were always identifying talent from around the globe, really, not just the country, to see, who made the most sense. So we became quite used to it. And we just, it's all an evolution, really, But I can definitely, I have more confidence to be able to sit with maybe a writer-director who is wildly talented. But that doesn't mean just because they're the writer-director that they have more experience or expertise than I do. So you have to be able to have those open conversations, I'm not trying to get one on that person or make them, but, understanding that while you are the person whose vision you're serving, I might have something to contribute. Right.
Yeah, you have a deeper knowledge of your job than...
Yes, because also don't forget, we send them, depending on what the project is, if it's film, television, whatever it may be, we send them a percentage of what we've seen and have seen for 20 years.
Right.
So while they may look at an actor and go, nope, they don't have it, I can point to 10 examples of why they do.
Right.
Have you seen this? Have you seen this? They auditioned for me.
For no reason.
Yes, they auditioned for me for this. It was a complete departure. I'm happy to share that audition with you. Like, it's, we have a wealth of knowledge and curating of relationships over the years with actors.
I mean, I might look at somebody and think of one show they did.
Yeah.
And that's not what you saw. And that's not what you know about. Or No-Ho Hank.
Yeah.
You introduce that actor to the rest of us.
Yeah.
I would swear he's an overnight success. Obviously, he knows he's been working for years.
Right.
And there are no overnight successes.
Correct. And I knew him, in his previous life before he, really sort of became who he is today with, his much talked about alopecia. So I knew him when he was considered in Hollywood to be, the 25-year-old hot leading man of that season. And to watch his journey over these years, the one thing that never changed was the talent.
Right.
So honestly, when you hear different stories about people or why they're not getting jobs, booking jobs, is it the self-tapes, well, you're just not right for the job, probably. It has nothing to do with your lighting, your sound, none of that. Because if you look at somebody like Anthony, who was here and successful, and now is a complete departure of who that person was, he is successful. I mean, that's fascinating. I'm just talking about this for the first time, and it's like really interesting.
For the first time about a month ago, I saw a pitch deck that had been partially AI generated. I mean, not generated, but written out by a human, but some of the images were AI generated. And it was some of the casting stuff. And it was shocking to realize, we all know that AI pulls from existing art, and it's not original, particularly. One of the people in there was just Kerry Washington. I mean, like AI just generated a headshot where I was like, that's have you started to see weird encroachments on your expertise there?
You know what? I maybe I'm naive, but I haven't. I don't know how you can AI taste. Again, maybe I'm naive. I don't know, but aesthetic and taste, like those are mine. They're in my brain. It's not. I understand how it can happen with a writer or even somebody's visual art, being a director. Right. But nobody can get in my brain and see how I read a script and it translates in my head to how I see something. They could say, cast this show like Breaking Bad was cast, but you're just you're impersonating actors. You're not, right. I don't know. Yeah. And maybe I'm naive, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm deeply trying to not just hate spell check, like just despise AI entirely. Like, I don't want to be short-sighted about the usefulness of a new tool, but at the same time, I feel like it's being applied to things that doesn't need to be and can't do.
Right.
And we're all excited, but calm down.
Right. I'm not excited about AI. I don't really understand what the benefit for me could be at this point.
I don't see why we're letting spell check encroach on these things, but yeah, it threw me off to see that, and so I was just curious if is that something that y'all had seen yet, or
no? But I wouldn't. It's not.
No, I would not.
But it's interesting.
Honestly, if somebody's project has you on it, why in the hell would they lean on that?
Yeah.
Like you've got Sherry time. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
One last question. Do you have a moment in your career where you've cast shows that I think just simply couldn't work with other actors? But that always that's always the vibe after, you just can't see it with someone else now. I'm sure there were other actors that could do Bill Hader's part, but Bill's Barry, Have you had a moment where you felt like I helped bring this together? I put the perfect person that wasn't necessarily in everybody's mind, but gave them their. I guess Anthony's probably
the biggest example of that. I also feel that when you look at Breaking Bad, when you look at
genius, he is a genius, and genius is 515.
When you look at a show like Breaking Bad, that was all through process. There wasn't one person that was attached to that show. There wasn't one person that was, but when Sharon and I went and we met with Vince Gilligan on that show, we had just had the privilege to see Bryan Cranston come in for a play that we were doing, written by Aaron Sorkin, called The Farnsworth Invention. And we were we had only been watching him for 5 years or 7 years or whatever, however long it was on, his sitcom on Fox, Malcolm in the Middle. And so first of all, he looked completely different, and his facility of language, and he's a genius. And so we really got to see firsthand the dynamic and the dichotomy of what he can do, comedy and drama. So when we went in to meet with Vince Gilligan, there were, you go in with some ideas to share your aesthetic and your taste. And at one point, we just were like, you're going to think we're crazy. But what about Bryan Cranston? The dad from Malcolm in the Middle. And he said, well, it's funny you should say that. He starred in my episode of The X-Files, and I have always had him in my mind. So
the rest of us were like Malcolm's dad?
Right.
Y'all got it. Yeah,
because that's what our job is to expose ourselves to not the norm. That's the most exciting thing, is to expose yourself to not the norm. And Aaron we had known, and Betsy, we had been reading for many years, and, it all sort of comes together. So that show, there wasn't anybody that should have, could have, would have. It happened exactly how it was supposed to. And I would have to say that I feel that way on most of my shows. I don't look at them, because there are so many circumstances that go into casting somebody. You could have a choice that is the best choice, and then a deal can't be made, or an availability issue comes up that wasn't communicated in the beginning, so you have to course correct. But that course correction, in my mind, is always, I guess that's what was meant to be.
Right.
I don't know if that's a little too spiritual or woo-woo, but it's just kind of how I've always seen it.
Thank you so much for making time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I really appreciate talking to you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.